Chelsea in chaos, club fined and fans furious, what happens next, is not just a headline. It feels like a summary of an era that has slowly unraveled in front of everyone's eyes. Because once upon a time, Chelsea Football Club represented ruthless efficiency, serial winning, and cold-blooded dominance. But now, the conversation around Stamford Bridge is filled with uncertainty, frustration, anger, and fear as the club finds itself fined, scrutinized, and emotionally disconnected from large sections of its own fanbase. And to understand how Chelsea arrived at this point, you have to rewind the story to the moment stability was replaced with turbulence, because the modern chaos at Chelsea did not begin with a single fine or one bad decision. It began with a complete identity shift that left the club trying to figure out who it really is in a rapidly changing football world. And the fine itself, while painful financially, is really just a symbol of a deeper structural problem, because fines in football are rarely about money alone. They are warnings, they are signals from governing bodies that something behind the scenes is not aligned with regulations, expectations, or long-term sustainability. And Chelsea being fined has intensified a feeling among supporters that the club is being run without a clear compass, because fans can accept losing games, they can accept rebuilding years and even painful transitions, but what they struggle to accept is confusion mixed with silence and mixed messages, and that is exactly what has defined Chelsea's recent period, as the ownership attempted to revolutionize the club with a bold American-style vision built on long contracts, data-driven recruitment, and youth-heavy investment. But football is not a spreadsheet, and the Premier League is not a startup ecosystem, and Chelsea found out the hard way that throwing ideas at the wall does not guarantee coherence on the pitch or credibility off it. And the fine, whether linked to financial compliance, transfer irregularities, or administrative breaches, has become the latest spark that ignited supporter anger, because it reinforces the belief that Chelsea are being reckless, not just tactically, but institutionally. And fans who once boasted about Roman Abramovich's ruthless clarity are now watching press conferences filled with vague promises, and sporting directors explaining long-term plans while short-term results collapse in front of their eyes. And this disconnect is why the reaction has been so fierce, because Chelsea supporters do not just feel disappointed, they feel lost, because the club they supported for decades was built on winning mentality, fear factor, and elite standards. And now they are being asked to trust a process that has delivered inconsistency, mid-table struggles, and embarrassing defeats against teams Chelsea once dominated without mercy. And the fine itself feels like confirmation that the club is paying the price for aggressive experimentation, because modern football regulations are not forgiving, and Chelsea tried to outsmart the system by spreading transfer fees over long contracts, only to find governing bodies tightening rules and closing loopholes, which leaves the club exposed and vulnerable. And this has fueled fan outrage, because supporters feel like Chelsea gambled with their future to chase innovation instead of respecting football realities. And now the bill is coming due, not just financially, but emotionally, because the atmosphere at Stamford Bridge has changed from intimidating to tense, and from confident to anxious. And you can hear it in the groans after misplaced passes, you can feel it in the silence after conceded goals, and you can see it in the debates raging online, where fans argue about ownership competence, recruitment failures, and the lack of experienced leadership within the squad. And what makes the situation even more volatile is the absence of clear accountability, because in the Abramovich era, when Chelsea failed, a manager was sacked ruthlessly and decisively, and while that approach had its flaws, it provided clarity. But now Chelsea exists in a strange limbo where managers are given time but not authority, players are given contracts but not structure, and executives speak of patience while demanding results. And this contradiction has poisoned the relationship between the club and its supporters, because fans feel they are being gaslit into believing chaos is progress, and that finishing outside the top four is part of some grand master plan. And the fine has shattered any illusion that everything is under control, because fines do not happen when clubs are stable, they happen when governance breaks down. And Chelsea fans know this instinctively, which is why the anger has reached boiling point with banners, protests, chants, and social media campaigns demanding transparency and direction. And the question now is what happens next, because Chelsea stand at a crossroads where every decision will shape the next decade of the club's identity. And the first possibility is course correction, because the fine could serve as a wake-up wake-up call, forcing the ownership to slow down, rethink their strategy, and bring football people back to the center of decision-making, which would mean prioritizing balance over hype, experience over potential, and structure over chaos. And that would also mean empowering a manager with genuine authority, rather than surrounding him with layers of executives and analytics teams, because football dressing rooms respond to clarity, not corporate language. And if Chelsea choose this path, they could still salvage their project, because the squad is talented, the academy remains strong, and the Premier League is forgiving to clubs that learn quickly from mistakes. But this path requires humility, and humility has been in short supply, because the second possibility is doubling down on the experiment, which would mean accepting short-term pain in the hope that long-term dominance eventually arrives. And this is a dangerous road, because fans are already exhausted, and patience is not infinite, especially at a club whose modern DNA is built on winning now, not winning later. And if results continue to stagnate, the atmosphere will turn toxic to the point where even talented players struggle to perform under constant pressure and scrutiny. And this is how clubs spiral, because instability breeds more instability. And the third and dramatic outcome is structural upheaval, because sustained fan anger combined with regulatory pressure could force changes at the executive level, whether that means reshuffling sporting directors, altering recruitment models, or even ownership reassessing their involvement. Because football history is filled with examples of ambitious projects collapsing under the weight of supporter rebellion. And Chelsea fans are not known for quiet acceptance. They are vocal, they are demanding, and they remember what success looks like, which makes this moment particularly dangerous, because expectations are deeply ingrained and cannot simply be reset with slogans about youth and sustainability. And beyond the club itself, this situation has broader implications for modern football, because Chelsea became the symbol of a new era where money, creativity, and legal loopholes were used to build squads at unprecedented scale. And now that same model is being challenged by regulators and rival clubs who believe Chelsea pushed boundaries too far. And the fine is a message not just to Chelsea, but the entire football world, that the rules are tightening and the Wild West era of financial innovation is ending, which means Chelsea must adapt quickly or risk becoming an example of what happens when ambition outruns governance. And for the players, this chaos creates its own challenges, because young footballers thrive in stable environments where roles are clear and expectations are defined. But Chelsea's squad is overloaded with talent, competing for minutes under constant tactical changes and managerial pressure, which makes development harder and confidence fragile. And this has been evident on the pitch, where performances swing wildly from dominant to disastrous within the same week. And fans see this inconsistency as proof that the project lacks coherence, because great teams are predictable in their standards, even when results fluctuate, and Chelsea currently are not predictable in anything except unpredictability. And the manager, regardless of who occupies the role, becomes the human shield for this dysfunction, because criticism always flows downward. And while fans argue about tactics, formations, and substitutions, the deeper issue remains structural, because no tactical tweak can fix a club that doesn't know what it wants to be. And the fine has exposed that uncertainty to the entire football world, which damages Chelsea's reputation as a destination club, because elite players want stability, clarity, and ambition, not chaos, controversy, and constant rebuilding. And while Chelsea can still attract talent with wages and London appeal, sustaining success requires more than contracts. It requires belief, and belief is built through consistency and leadership and trust. And right now, trust is fragile between the fans and the ownership, because supporters feel like they are watching a live experiment conducted on their club without their consent. And that emotional betrayal cuts deep, because football clubs are not franchises. They are cultural institutions tied to community, identity, and history. And when fans feel alienated, the consequences are severe, because atmosphere declines, support fractures, and patience evaporates. And the irony is that Chelsea's ambition to build a long-term powerhouse could collapse precisely because the foundation of supporter trust was neglected. And now the ownership faces a critical test of emotional intelligence, because how they respond to this crisis will define their legacy. And if they choose transparency, communication, and genuine engagement, they might slowly rebuild trust. But if they hide behind legal statements and corporate language, the divide will widen, and the fine will be remembered